Off Script with Super E recommends listener discretion as these real but sometimes uncensored stories can be filled with mature content. Hey everybody, Jay here, back with another Off Script with Super E. Sitting to my left, as you can't see him, but I can, is A-Train. A-Train, say a little something.
Hey everybody, it is A-Train. Hope everybody's doing good.
And the star of our show, as always, Super E. Super E, say a little something.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you're having a good weekend.
Right on, right on. So we've covered a few great topics in our first few episodes, and we're back today to get another one going. So I see no point in putting it off any longer. Super E, tell us a tale.
Well, a lot of times when we're doing things, you don't think something's going to result in anything, and then the next thing you know, you hit the jackpot.
Okay.
And this is about 1993, maybe. And I remember I had my two older partners that were narcotics guys in the 70s who did things completely different than me. They had this informant that was just a stone cold hillbilly, and none of his information ever really panned out, and they got really frustrated with him. So they kind of passed him on to one of our new guys that we had in the narcotics unit. And they said, hey, work with this hillbilly informant, see if you can get anything out of him. They didn't expect much out of him. So the new guy, was talking to him, and all of a sudden, after a couple of weeks, this hillbilly calls the new guy and goes, hey, I got this big guy. He wants me to broker a deal for some marijuana. And we're probably thinking about, like a $200 marijuana buy, not much. And this hillbilly informant goes, no, this guy is trying to sell 32 pounds of marijuana.
That's a lot of marijuana.
The new guy was like, holy shit, that's a lot of dope. So we all got on board on it, trying to help him out and trying to figure out how we're going to do this. How are we going to make a 32-pound marijuana buy? Where are we going to get the money? And how are we going to take this guy down as safe as possible?
So, real quick, you mentioned how are we going to get the money? Just kind of shed a little light on where that money comes from to, go out and make those undercover buys or the undercover deals in prostitution. Obviously, it can't come right out of our pocket. So where does it come from?
Well, like normally in the narcotics unit, you expect maybe to spend $500, $1,000, maybe $1,500. But on this one, we were thinking the same thing, because each pound that this marijuana dealer was selling was $1,000 a pound.
Okay. And this was back, what was this, 1990 something?
1993.
Okay. So
we're like, okay, where do we get $32,000 from? Because nobody had $32,000 in the narcotics unit to spare.
And so was there just like a big pool of money sitting in a cupboard, or how did
cupboard?
Where did you go to? Like when you reported in for the day, and you were getting ready to hit the street. Who supplied you with the money to use for that day for your shift?
Well, every day you had at least $300 in your pocket. You had a standing, basically, account of always having $300.
Okay.
And if, let's say, you spend $100 in one day, you would do a receipt, turn it in, and they would give you amount of money to get you back up to $300. So it was a daily tabulation.
And who is they? Is that a supervisor? Is that the property room?
A supervisor that was assigned to dole out the money.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Detectives.
And so that $300 that you would have every day, I mean that's good for your smaller street buys and all that.
Yeah.
But not 32 grand. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that would be moving into, let's say, if we were helping the feds,
Right. Right. Okay.
and usually the feds, the most I ever spent with the feds was like, I think about $10,000. So this was kind of uncharted territory.
Okay.
Okay.
So what'd you guys do? How'd you?
Well, we looked around and said, what do we do? What do we do? And then somebody said, hey, call the credit union, the police credit union, because they've got tons of money. And the new guy who hadn't been doing this very long, he goes, there's no way I want to take out $32,000 because the head guy at the credit union said, whoever takes this out signs their name to a piece of paper. And if you lose that individual or individuals who sign their name have to repay that back.
So Mr. Drysdale was on board.
Yeah, Mr. Drysdale said negative on that. And Mr. Howell wasn't going to go for it either. But anyways, so nobody in the office said, I want to do that. But I looked at my sergeant, he was a good guy, and he was like kind of a maniac. But you just couldn't tell by looking at him. You thought he just looked like an old heavyset guy, the guy that used to be in them commercials in that movie about the old people that felt young. What was it?
Wilford Brimley.
Wilford Brimley.
Well, okay.
It's
You'll
the
never,
right.
never get any older, and you're never going to die.
Imagine
It's the right thing to do.
Brimley.
That's good.
Thank you. Go on, Super E. Sorry, didn't mean to
And
interrupt
he was
you.
also Pops in one of my favorite
Yeah.
baseball movies of all time.
Oh yeah.
So I looked at the sergeant and I said, hey, I'll sign my name. And he goes, fuck it, I'll sign my name. So we signed our name when we went down there to get the 32,000. I imagined we'd be carrying out 3 or 4 briefcases full of money.
Right.
It was like 2 stacks of money about 2 inches tall. I said, that's it. That's 32 grand right there.
Well, you
It was-
stacked $3,200 bills on top of each other, and
You know, let me ask you this: was the disappointment at seeing that small stack of cash? Do you think it was as disappointed as Star was
here we
when
go.
she? That's a previous episode. Everybody, if you haven't heard that, you need to go back. And listen to it.
Listen to episode 1 and see what Star was up to.
Yeah.
I don't think Star expected much from her clientele.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but nor from me either.
Right.
But anyways, so generally, when you're doing a drug buy and you're using money, you've got to record all that money, serial numbers and all that.
Right.
You can't do that with $32,000. You can, we took as many pictures of it as we could and took down, serial numbers from the stack. But, 30, I don't recall doing every serial number. We might have.
So was that before the practice of just putting it all on the copy machine? And
Yes.
okay.
Yes, this was before the practice of doing that.
Okay.
They were. If it was 1993, they were probably using like a Polaroid, or
I was just thinking.
or like
yeah.
a stone tablet, just chiseling the numbers into
Right.
I don't know. Sorry. Go ahead, Super E.
So me and the Sarge go down and pick up the money, and we bring it back. And so now you got to. Okay, now back then where I was talking about nowadays you do op plans and all this, A-Train was kind of correct. It was kind of like a fan-out boys mentality back then.
Uh-huh.
Fan-out boys.
That was the off
with
plan.
the pass.
Yeah.
All right.
So on this one, we knew that the was a big guy, a big heavyset guy. And he was always armed with a 38.
Okay.
And the hillbilly CI said he's always armed with a 38. He keeps it at the very front of his in his belt buckle by his stomach. He's going to expect you to have a gun too.
Okay.
And so the sergeant, who had tons of guns laying around, he said, "You need a gun that doesn't look like a police gun, doesn't look like a Glock."
Right.
So he hands me this big pearl handled Dirty Harry cannon that was chrome,
Nice.
and goes, "Put this down the front of your pants." I was like 10-4, but then I had my police gun in my back. And then Sarge was taking pictures of me. I said, "Why are you taking Polaroid pictures, by the way? Why are you taking pictures of me?" He goes, "I just want the SWAT team to know what you look like when we do the takedown."
Oh. Okay.
And I said, okay, the SWAT guy should know who I am. I said, you tell those pussies not to mess up my hair. Now, I was joking around.
Because as we all know, the SWAT
the
guys
SWAT
are the
team
true bad
generally
boys.
sometimes doesn't have a sense of humor.
Right. And of course, you were saying that tongue in cheek to your brothers
Yes,
on the SWAT
it
team.
just, I love the SWAT guys.
Right.
Oh, they're
though
they're the
some-
bad boys.
Yes, sometimes they might come off as arrogant pricks, but we love them.
Of course we do.
But the plan was that I was going to go in, give this dude $32,000, and when he brought in inside the informant's house. Now remember, this is in the extremely impoverished hillbilly area of the city we worked, and so it was one of them old houses, and it had the shingles on the whole house was shingled on the roof, on the sides. You remember those houses.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And it had a real old screen door on the front. That's what I remember about it.
All right.
And the living room was very small. So this is where this is all going to happen at, in the small front living room. And once I gave the signal on a transmitting device, the SWAT team was going to come bursting in, take everybody down to the ground, including me,
Right.
and put everybody in cuffs and act like everybody's going to jail.
Okay.
And so I had never been on the inside of a house where the SWAT team did one of their search warrants. I was always on the outside, and it was terrifying to watch from the outside. I had no idea what it was going to be like on the inside.
Okay. Yeah.
So the person that was going to be listening to my transmissions, he was a sergeant, and he was another sergeant, and he was a little heavy set, and they gave him the nickname of Mongo. And the code word was, when I saw the 32 pounds of marijuana, Mongo's gonna like this shit.
That was the takedown code, huh?
That was the takedown.
All right.
That meant for them to come in. So, anyways, I get to the house, and there's probably 50 people on the outside all hiding. So it's just me, this lunatic hillbilly informant that I didn't trust at all.
Now, 50 coppers or 50 people just in general?
There were guys from several other narcotics units and the SWAT guys.
Okay.
So if I think about it, maybe 50, I'm embellishing. It might have been about 25.
But it was all good guys out there.
It's a lot of cops, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of good guys out there.
Okay.
Okay.
So, but I'm in this house by myself with this informant that I think is kind of insane. And I personally thought he was full of shit. But
Right.
I was, you got to try. And
So you weren't 100% sure that that this guy really had 32 pounds of weed.
I wasn't 100% sure that he would even show up.
Okay, got it.
I wasn't sure of that, but I was 100% sure that this hillbilly could be a lunatic
Okay.
and might be lying. And I was a little concerned about being set up because I'm the only dude in the house.
Oh.
And, there's going to be a guy coming in with a gun, and he's going to have his wife with him too. I don't know if I don't know anything about her, if she's going to have a gun.
Hey,
So,
Supri, let's talk a little bit about that. So, okay, so you're a guy, you're walking into this house with this this informant that you don't 100% trust with $32,000, right?
correct.
So when you say, you were a little afraid maybe you were getting set up, what are you talking about? Explain that to us a little bit. What happens out on the street sometimes?
Well, they call them rips.
Okay.
Where here's what happens with people when they try to set up sellers or buyers of weed.
Right.
They call them rips. They'll tell them I think it was about 2011. Some marijuana dealer was said he had I believe about close to 30 pounds of marijuana he was looking to sell, and two young guys said they had $30,000 and said for him to meet him over at this house. I think it was like an abandoned house. They would do the exchange there. And what the two younger guys did to the guy bringing the marijuana, they executed him, took all the 30 pounds of weed, if I remember correctly. And, they never had any intentions of paying a guy. It was a rip set up from the start. So, it crossed my mind like, hey, are these guys going to try to, rip me and then take off out the back door and try to get the hell out of there?
Did you think the informant could have been in on the rip? Do you think he could have been setting you up?
Something that goes through your head. There's always crazy possibilities because I'm not saying I don't think the marijuana dealer used drugs.
Right.
He was a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
He sold marijuana. He wasn't into using crack, cocaine, or anything like that.
Right. So the informant, there's a reason why we call them informants. I mean, we're not exactly deputizing these people, right?
And Ernie, so I guess what I'm getting at is, I mean, it's not, I'm sorry. Yes. Super E, it's A-Train. It's not uncommon to, that these guys setting up, these drug deals, that they rip the people off coming in to buy, right? So
that is something you always have to be wary of.
That's a whole nother level of concern for you when you go in these things.
And were you concerned at all that with the drug dealer bringing his wife along, that she was going to walk in and look at you and go, "Oh my God, it's Ray. Ray, you busted me 2 years ago."
Yes, that is always a concern of meeting somebody. Let's say, because when I made all them vice arrests for a couple of years, we're talking about hundreds. You never know who you're going to meet.
Right.
Never. And so that was kind of a concern. But my main concern was the stability of that informant and what he might be up to. Because let's say the drug dealer was on the up and up. I'm on the up and up. That informant seeing $32,000, he might think he could grab it and take off and go. You don't know how nuts these people can be.
Right. So you
really don't. Yeah. This guy had an extensive criminal history, the informant.
Yeah. So you got several things to worry about when you're in there doing that stuff, don't you?
Yes. The funny thing about it, when you're doing undercover stuff, you got to act like a normal person trying to buy drugs. But inside your brain is spinning around of taking everything in. Okay, who's in that room over there? Is there a place for somebody to hide and jump me? I got to pay attention to. Is that who's behind there?
Right.
How many people are outside?
Right.
So you have so many variables going through your head while you're trying to act relaxed and normal and like nothing's going on.
So, and that in itself, I mean, that's a gift, and I'm sure it's somewhat of a gift. I'm sure it's somewhat learned, but you have to split your officer safety cop brain to your I got to be normal Ray brain.
Right.
That's that could be a tall order for people.
It's kind of like being kind of like a bipolar thing. You got to think one way on this and another way on something else.
That
so you got to be doing two things at once.
So so your diagnosis helped you on this. Is that what?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding, Ernie.
It was very handy. But
Yes.
So anyways, but the main plan was for once I gave the signal, Mongo's going to like this shit. SWAT team comes in. The variable that I forgot about was my good-humored but very unflattering comments I made about the SWAT team being a bunch of pussies and all that. Oh, and I also said, this might have irked him a little bit. I said, tell him not to mess up my hair.
So why would he pass that along?
Because I think he thought it would be funny for them to mess up my hair.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I got you.
Uh-huh.
So you're there, you're waiting. What happened next?
All right. So I go in there and I meet the informant. I mean, I'm there with the informant. I'm talking about what's going on. And I think I might advise him, he better do exactly what he's told or bad things can happen to him. So I think I gave him that little lecture.
Sure.
So we're waiting. I hear a car, and I see the headlights pull up, and the large, gently taps on the door, and the informant opens it up, and he does the introductions, and I'm thinking, this marijuana dealer is a big dude. He'd be hard to handle if he got a head of steam coming at you.
Mm-hmm.
You better step out of his way.
Mm-hmm.
But I immediately see the gun in his waistband. It's like a 38.
Right.
And then the informant makes the introductions, and then I can see the drug dealer. He's looking down, and he sees my whatever it was, dirty, hairy gun with the pearl handles.
Right.
And he seemed not to be threatened by it. He seemed to be kind of relaxed by it. Oh, yeah, this guy's got a gun too. And he comments, I think, on the pearl handles.
Okay.
And then he asked to see the money. And I put the money down on a coffee table for him. Of course, it had Camel cigarette stains on the coffee table and burns.
Of course.
But he looks at it, and he expected the money to be taller too.
Uh-huh.
The stack to be taller and fatter.
Right.
And he looks at it, and he's like, hey, is it all here? And I go, yeah, counted it. And he looks at it, and then he goes, well, okay, this stack is taller than this other stack because the short stack is brand new money. That's why I said, oh, thanks. He gave me a little lesson on how to count money very quickly.
Okay. Helpful.
And so once he was satisfied that I had the money and everything was going smoothly, his girlfriend was going to bring in the bags of marijuana. And I found out quickly that his girlfriend's name was Donna.
Okay.
Because the drug dealer goes, as soon as he was happy with everything, he goes, Donna, bring in the stuff.
Okay.
And I heard this door open up, and then I heard this plodding and kind of thundering up the steps. And this great big woman who looks like she'd work on a dairy farm to lift cows up to be milked. She just brings in 32 pounds of marijuana in, 2 bags of it, like she was carrying feathers. And so I'm thinking, okay, besides her husband, if she got a head of steam and came at you, you better get out of the way because she'd flatten you too. Because I think they both could wear the same pair of Sansa belts. And so as soon as, she comes in and I'm talking to her and we're making conversation about, you don't sit there and just talk about drugs all the time. She's like, oh, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. My name's Ray. Oh, you're Donna. And so you do this kind of like courteous little chit chat back and forth to each other.
Right. Pleasantries.
Yeah. So as I'm doing what you said, the pleasantries, my mind is thinking, okay, I got to give the code word, and I have to be out of the way of the SWAT team when they come in, but I also have to be ready if the drug dealer or anybody else is going to take a shot at the SWAT guys coming in.
Right. I
got to be prepared to eliminate their threat towards the SWAT guys. So I got to protect myself, but I also got to protect the SWAT guys who are coming in with a head of steam, pissed off at me at my negative comments prior to that.
And at the same time, remain Ray. I mean, that's that's an incredible thing that you got all those things
you're
going
balancing
on.
all this stuff.
Right.
So it was kind of like the calm before the storm. There was like a little lull in the conversation, and it's like I could hear the wind blowing. It was like a Wizard of Oz before the tornado hit.
Wow.
And then I just heard that old storm door. I just heard it. When they just I heard.
Now, Super E, did you give the code word?
Yeah. Yes, I forgot. When I thought everything was ready, I go, Mongo's gonna like this shit, and I could tell that the drug dealer like, who the fuck is Mongo? So once I said that, I heard the storm door it just went like this, and then it was like an explosion. There was no explosions. There was nothing like that.
No flashbangs.
The SWAT team came in so fast. It was like an explosion. And also, I thought they cut off the power because all the lights went out.
Mm-hmm.
In my head, the lights went out. But no, the lights didn't go out. They come in so fast and so furious, and they take you to the ground. I mean, you don't know what's going on. And next thing you know, I was from being standing up to my mouth was eating the dirty ass carpet in that dumpy house. And they were, I don't know which SWAT guy it was, because it seemed like there's a whole bunch of feet, but they were all standing on my back. And they go, oh, look, this badass has 2 guns, because I had my police gun in the back.
Right.
And, but before they stomped on me, they grabbed the great, pissed his pants, and they threw him on, he lands on top of me.
Oh, ouch.
And I'm like, oh my God. Then they used me like they were getting ready to do the high dive, spraying off me. And that's when they're talking about, oh, this son of a bitch thinks he's badass. He's got 2 guns. So
thank God, just real quick, thank God one of them didn't pull your duty gun out and go, oh, this must be stolen. It's got our stamp on it. Because if I recall back then, they still stamped the side of it with our badge.
Well, they did take both guns off me. And that's when he goes, you got 2 guns. And I was like, I said, I don't think they like my comments earlier, because it seemed a little irritating.
So that came up when they briefed. Then that came up.
So did they do a little bullying of you, Super E?
Just a little bit. I think I was learning a lesson.
Little.
Right.
Did they manhandle you just a little bit?
They picked me up. I'm sorry. They jerked me up, cuffed me behind my back, tossed me outside like I didn't pay my bar bill. And then another guy caught me. They threw me in the police car, before they locked the door. Remember, I'm handcuffed behind my back. I can't do nothing. I'm in the back seat of one of them squad cars that has the, so you can't get into the front seat, one of these shields.
Oh, right, shield car.
Right.
And they knew I hated country music. So what did they do? They turn the car on, turn on the country music that I hate, and start dying laughing. This will kill you all.
Oh, they were getting back at Super E.
Oh, that's good. That's man, that's good stuff. So real quick, this episode's winding down, but just out of curiosity, and maybe curious to the listeners, the CI you were using, if you can just give us a brief story about what he did and how he became your CI.
Okay, imagine if Joe Dirt was doing drugs, selling drugs, and I think he was just like stealing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
He was just a low level pain in the ass in the community, doing drugs, stealing, that kind of thing.
Right.
So that was his story, and I'm trying to remember his criminal history. It was nothing to brag about.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was a guy that was constantly on the uniform guy's radar in that area. The patrol cars that are around that area.
Right. Right.
But they were well aware of him and what he would always be up to.
But those are the guys you get the info from, isn't it?
Yeah,
those are the guys that know what's going on.
Yeah, I don't know how he became an informant to my 2 older partners, but I know they were getting a little exasperated with him. They just thought he was an idiot. So they thought, well, let's let the new guy deal with him. And as soon as he goes to the new guy, he comes up with all this great information, because afterwards, after I was uncuffed and allowed to leave, we all went back to the office, and this drug dealer, he just like, yep, I got 172 more pounds at home. What? So when we got back to the office, we have to type up an additional search warrant for this guy's house to make sure that we had all our P's and Q's together.
Right.
Do the probable cause, get an extra search warrant. Even though he gave consent, you just wanted to make sure it was right. If I remember correctly, we did another search warrant, and he had 172 pounds at his house.
Wow.
That's a great hit. Great hit. Great hit. Great story. Great work as always. My gosh. Well, A-Train, do you have anything to add to that?
Nothing other than, Ernie, let me ask you this on subsequent
Okay, A-Train.
Super E. This is A Train. On
That we're trying real hard. But.
On subsequent operations and deals, did you disparage the SWAT team again? Do you recall?
No, I don't think I don't think I did. I think I was like, "Hey, you guys are great."
You think you might have learned your lesson, huh?
I did learn. I did learn my lesson of not being in the same room with them when they were doing a search warrant and being a bad guy.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good policy. I think.
I'm guessing it had to be impressive though, as well trained.
I was extremely impressed with how fast, efficient, and just how quickly they took control of the scene. It was like in a second, it seemed like they had everything under control.
Right. And that's what they're supposed to. That's what they're there for. It's why they train. And
that's what I do. I give them credit, man. Those guys train all the time.
They do. And I think becoming a member of the SWAT team is one of the toughest application processes within the department that there is.
I think it has to be the toughest application process to go through.
Yeah, and it has to be. I mean, it has to be. Well, you know what, Super E, you got anything to close us out with? Any thoughts? Any wisdom? Anything? We're getting ready to close this episode out.
No, I don't have any thoughts on that. But just if you're just a regular citizen out there and these stories sound crazy to you, just remember we did all this because our community was requesting that we do something about the crime in their area and the drug problems. So, I mean, people who are not used to living in areas that have a lot of crime, they got to realize that the people that do live in these areas, they want as much help as possible because they want to raise their kids in a safe environment. They just want to live in a safe environment without having to worry about everything they own being stolen or broken.
That's very well said.
Super. Well said. Well said. All right. Well, we're going to close out this episode. Hope everybody enjoyed it and hope you will continue to listen to Off Script with Super E. Take us out, A-Train.
That was wrong music.
You got a little crazy over there with that wrong button. Go ahead and try it again. Hit the right button.
Let's try a different one.
Yeah.